Hey folks, Andy here from Andy McSweeney Photography and Photo Tour Bruges. As a lot of you know, I had the Fujifilm GFX 50s medium format camera on my hands for a nice week here in Bruges. Like to run it through its paces. You might have already even seen my first review video talking about the people and portraiture side of things. If that interests, feel free to check it out. And if not, maybe you're here for the purpose of this video, which is to review the GFX 50s in low light photography, specifically low light landscapes, end of the day, blue hour, dusk, full black, and then into the interior side of things. So I think this is something the 50s can do real nice. If you're curious on my thoughts on the outset, I will do a full conclusions at the end of this video. But for a little bit of spoilers as far as Andy's feelings on this camera, guys, you'll see it in the images. I find the GFX does quite a good job in low light photography. There are a couple of caveats, of course. Low light does get tricky, and no camera is totally safe, especially in the hands of a photographer like me. But yeah, I think it did well. There are a couple issues like I mentioned, and I'll talk about in detail at the end of the video. But overall, very, very pleased. And having said that, why don't you take a look at the images for yourself? We'll click over into Lightroom and see those in nice high def. See how that goes. Okay, so diving into the files of the GFX, you've got some really good stuff to work with here, gang. If we're talking about low light, contrasty situations, landscapes, interiors, whatever it may be, I'm really pleased to report that I found that this camera worked out great as far as what I needed and delivering it. You can see this is Frank Van Acker. He's one of the ex-mayors of Bruges. He ran the place for 20 years, and he ran it well, so he gets a nice statue by the fish market with the City Hall in the background. That's what we're looking at, but when you look into the side here on Lightroom, you can see on this and many photos, I've taken the highlights down and then pushed the shadows up in these high contrast situations. Then either using contrast, blacks, or clarity, I've basically played around a bit to reintroduce a more natural feeling after that. And in a lot of cases, I'm using one of the Fujifilm film simulations. Even on the RAW, I can do that in Lightroom dead easy just by going to one of the presets under camera calibration. So those are the kind of conditions a lot of these photos are going to be presented under. If you look at the original shot, you can see it caught a lot. If I had just shot it brighter, obviously I would have had Frank in a little more clear detail. And when you're talking about the sharpness of the image overall, this is ISO 200, 2/80th of a second on the kit 32-64 lens, and everything works out a real treat. Of course, at f4 on a medium format, I get this nice drop in the depth of field. But, aside from what's going on with the image overall, you got to look at where you end up. So if I shoot it like this and then end up with this, just by highlights down, shadows up, bit of messing around, and then maybe in this case, taking the brush tool and going over top with it for a bit more exposure, well, you can see that all plays well. So if you're thinking about the GFX as like a travel camera, if you're thinking, well, I'm happy with mirrorless, but I'm also happy on crop, why would I carry around this medium format? You can start seeing where there's justification, because for these kind of situations, you're not thinking about taking 3 exposures, having to worry about nail the exposure just dead on because you don't want to flex the file around too much in post-production, and all these other aspects that you got to consider. Also with travel photography, one of the things I reach for when I'm combining business and pleasure with travel, that's part of my job, is that I want to get an efficiency going around the shooting part of things so I can also enjoy my holiday, rest, relax, recharge, all that good stuff. So for that, the GFX, I think, starts justifying itself pretty quickly. And overall, when I look at the files close up, get into the pixels, really see what's going on. Well, there are situations like here, if you're using the kit 32-64, especially at f4, you might get some, weird echoes going on at the edges of buildings. Obviously, pushing it around to the extremes is going to promote this sort of thing. So that's where you're going to want to be careful and such. But obviously, that's also where with post-production, you can clean things up quite nicely, either using specialized software or maybe just going in there in Photoshop and cloning out those extra echoes where they look funky. So lots of interest for me for the GFX as a landscape camera in general. But when you talk about this low light situation, whether it's this, whether it's 10 minutes earlier when there's more light in the sky on a different corner, this camera delivers. I'm just taking one shot in RAW, which is RAF for the Fujifilm format, and highlights down, shadows up, clarity and contrast, boom, boom. I think on top of that, again, just a brush stroke into some of the darker areas, like I think right around here. Oh, maybe not. Yep, I'm done. And that's real nice. And if I'm going to be investing in a camera like this, as well as investing the time, the energy, the effort to carry it around and use it, I want these kind of results. So really excellent work for the GFX as far as I'm seeing. And then just carrying along with, the light fading away and just different situations you're going to hit up against, especially as a landscape photographer. You got to think, you're going to want depth in a lot of the frame, which is sometimes where medium format cameras can trap you out. You got to watch out on this, think about all the aspects involved, your focal range, the distance between the background objects, your aperture, all that sort of thing. But when I zoom in here on my focus point for this kind of shot, this is working out great. I'm at an aperture of f13, so this softness is down to just reflections in the water. As soon as I get back on dry land, you can see real nice sharpness and clarity, all kinds of definition in the image that I can work with well. Where it does get a little bit jittery in this case is because, well, it was a windy day, so the trees were moving a bit. But anything that's nailed down is nailed down nice, proper, and correct. And part of the reason I get towards the back of the frame with that one, and wanted to mention this especially, is that f13 can be pushing it for lens diffraction. That's where, in layman's terms and keeping it quick, that's where the pixels junk out just because you have a little too much aperture going on there and the hole's a little bit small for the digital sensors. So it was really wonderful to see in this particular aspect for landscapes the GFX delivered well. And similar, different corner of town, again, highlight shadows. Again, nice high aperture number, so it's really closed down. I get loads of depth out of that, but when I get to the corner of the frame, aside from the echoes of people, I have a lot of image to work with. I don't see pixel diffraction really kicking in, lens diffraction, excuse me. And yeah, real nice, sharp, punchy photos to work with. And this is from the kit lens, so you step away from that and you go into the primes, especially for me, the 23mm, which is an 18mm full frame equivalent, would be real interesting for this sort of aspect. But it's good to see that the GFX really thinks about, just making all this work, and, well, especially the engineers at Fuji made it work. So good work, gang. And speaking of pushing the camera around and just being in unusual situations, let's keep with that theme of, work and pleasure when you're on travel and shooting and that kind of thing. If I'm going out for dinner with the wife around dusk and I'm going to go a little easy on the shooting, I might be able to get away with throwing the GFX in my bag, but I think bringing my tripod might be pushing my luck. Just if we're keeping a bit casual, we might be going out afterwards. I don't mind having the camera close, but a tripod I think is not only slowing things down, but it's a bit of a pain to carry. So if I ditched the tripod, but then I fell upon this beautiful corner of Bruges and really wanted to at least get something, that's where at a third of a second, leaning on the bridge and, keeping a nice high aperture number so I get those sparks, but then taking the ISO up to 12,800. Well, obviously, guys, when you zoom in at that kind of ISO, you can't expect too much as far as low noise, sharp detail. That's the extreme of the camera. So up close, heavy cropping, all this sort of stuff, you're going to have extra issues at high ISOs. Any camera will do that, but it's really nice to know, I noticed that the GFX, at least for like something to work with, for an overall wide shot, something for a website, small print, that sort of thing, it's good to know that I have something to work with. And there is, at least from a distance, like zoomed out, a reasonable amount of like detail to at least have something there. And don't forget, of course, Lightroom, Photoshop, On One, all sorts of software you can look at towards reducing noise and just increasing detail. So it's not like this is the end-all be-all. But just wanted to make a point there that even though ISO 12,800 is right at the top and pushing my luck, I at least got something. And that's kind of nice to see. All right, taking the ISOs down and just back on tripods, really just towards the end of the day and showing where I think the GFX just did great. I'm going to go full screen on that for a second. I'm really pleased. That's just the Karmersbridge, the Karmersbrugge, if you want to say it locally. And with that nice streak with the car passing by on the long exposure, landing right near that other car with just a little bit of spitting distance as it finishes. I like how the shot pulled itself together overall, and also just having lights on in homes is something I really like for urban landscapes. So being able to do this in one shot with the GFX, let's get out of full screen so you can see the EXIF kit lens at about 42.5 millimeters, ISO 320, so my shutter speeds are still a little bit short, but f8, I'm really just getting everything I need out of this lens. Go in, there's going to be limits to the dynamic range, obviously, so do be a little bit careful, or that's where you consider an HDR. But without making an HDR, without compromising those light streaks, without messing around in post-production, I'm getting real nice results from this camera. Nice color fidelity, good sharpness, real lovely detail, and just everything overall is working out just the way I'm looking for it to work out. Another low corner of Brugge, just showing you the blue hour. Also, just where the white balance, all the light temperatures that are out there from the various lamps. That's throwing things around on the scene, and you can see the GFX just handled it beautifully. If I go over to the develop module, the white balance, I've messed around with other things, but the white balance is right what the camera thought it was and did a great job. Really, really accurate. And just another feature of the GFX that I like seeing and basically expect to see for this kind of money. It's nice that if I am in a hurry on my travel shooting, or if I am in a complicated situation, it's good to know that the white balance is, very, very, very accurate, even in these difficult situations by and large. So good work, Fuji. That's the sort of stuff I'm looking for. And, again, a low light, high contrast situation. This is right at the end of the day by the Rose and Hood Quay. This is one of the postcard corners of Bruges. So, I mean, how could I not take a shot of this? And you can see just in all the various ways and situations how the camera's handling it. The different white balances are working out quite accurately, or I can at least fix things quite easily. And just, the kit lens at 32-64 is still really nailing down detail, sharpness. I find the accuracy of the lines is really something worth commending, and just overall things work. And then, just for this sample, okay, we're going vertical instead of horizontal, but it's a nice little corner to go vertical with. And this is where I've moved away from the kit lens, and I had the 110 millimeter f2, which is a lovely, lovely portrait lens, which of course carries over across portraits. So I set it up for this moment, and you can see just when I put a prime lens on here, again, white balances, all that stuff's looking great. If it's off, I can fix it non-destructively. But here, guys, is where you really see the detail on the camera just pull up so beautifully. I mean, I'm zoomed ridiculously tight here. In fact, see that? Look at that. I mean, that's just that little section. Whoof, whoof, whoof. It's insane. So when you do get everything really right, especially I find with a prime lens, like any camera we could talk about, that's where you just see like this GFX just bleed quality. And it's really, really lovely. Really pleased with the results I got. Now just going into pitch black for a few more sample photos. You can see again just sharpness, color accuracy, everything's pulling out great. Even though I've pushed up the ISO a bit to 400, the grain, even in those dark areas, is very manageable. If it isn't, I know it's manageable, so it is manageable, but anything I might have to treat afterwards as far as noise reduction, I find just there's a really pleasant low noise to work with, and when you do run the noise reduction, that it comes together well. There's good noise, there's bad noise, and this is a pretty good noise. Look at that, just from one of the ground lamps. Really well put together. And again, a nighttime shot, we saw the windmills. Now you're on top of the windmills. You can see the view over Bruges. And just, again, lots of range to work with. This one, it is a very, very contrasty situation. And, the camera did a pretty good job. And you can see when I zoom into regions, just very, very pleased with the overall quality, sharpness. It was a windy night, so of course we got some blur. But, boop, just get in on those right areas where it really works out. And you can see you've just got everything you need. So really fun. Great nighttime landscape camera, even when you do these sideways Dutch tilts to keep it interesting. Okay, guys, let's switch it up a little bit. We've talked about, low light, nighttime, outdoor landscape stuff. Let's go inside. This is the Basilica of the Holy Blood. This is where I meet for my photo tours as Photo Tour Brugge, or at least out front in the building. I don't think I could afford the rent on meeting inside here. And, well, those guys being my neighbors for the last 5 years since Photo Tour Brugge, when I knew I had the GFX on my hands, I thought I'd offer that I take a photo on the inside, just see what the GFX could do and maybe get them their next postcard photo. Okay, so you can see set up with the tripod here, 3.1 seconds at ISO 125 f14 for lots of depth and everything working out well. And wherever I zoom in on this shot, I think I'm doing okay. This is quite zoomed in. You can see that background tapestry, everything's flying around beautiful. I basically find, guys, if something's not looking right to you, it's probably more me than the camera. Yeah, we lost a little bit of depth going down the frame. Maybe I could have pushed it up to f16, but you can see where it has nailed the focus and the depth. Everything's just looking grand. And also a very, very tricky lighting situation. Outdoor natural lighting, diffused through all these, colored glasses. And then we have some indoor lighting, and then there's a couple other sources. So I was very, very impressed about how the GFX handled it. And just in the downstairs Basilica, again, with white balances right off camera, I'm pretty much where I need to be, if not exactly. And it's parsing those various temperatures of light really, really pleasantly. So that's the sort of thing that I'm expecting out of a camera like the GFX. And again, just wonderful to see it deliver. And again, just another little sample. I mostly use the kit 32 to 64, but with the 110, this is at the Adorno's domain, or the Jerusalem Church, as some may know it. And they've got glass that goes back to the 1400s. So this beautiful Venetian glass, setting up a tripod, nailing it down with a prime lens, really just getting everything. And you can see, I'm seeing the graduation in colors. I'm seeing the wear, the tear, even real nice definition on that protective coating of mesh on the outside. So really, really fantastic. If you're inside, if you're out, if you go to a restaurant while you're on holiday and go, boy, that's pretty, you might want to set up and take a shot and not have to worry about 10 light sources of different sorts messing with you. This is Park Restaurant, by the way, one of the spots I can recommend in Bruges. This is Blackbird Restaurant, nice place for breakfast and lunch and worth a reservation, and also with all these mixed light sources, I drop by there, I go, this is a really cool cafe, I want to get a wide shot. It's nice to know that I don't have to mess around too much, either on white balances or taking 3 shots and putting them together as HDRs. So really, really pleasant, just overall. And in another, case scenario, guys, these last 2 shots are on tripods. So that's 2.6 seconds. That's 1.6 seconds. If I go handheld and turn up the ISO at 1600 so that I can show how this isn't a painting next to the other paintings, it's good to know that when I do push up these ISOs, not too aggressively, but to a nice reasonable number, 1600, 3200, maybe 6400, that when I go in and look at the grain that's produced by the slightly higher ISO, it really produces a pleasant grain. It's not in my way. It's not hitting the image sharpness overall too hard. And yeah, I've got an image to work with, and that's what I'm paying for this camera. So I got to see these results, and seeing them in the files is a real pleasure. And also knowing, again, as a travel camera, that I can take it handheld, push up the ISO a little bit, be able to use the tilt screen in this case to get close to the birdcage lights. That's all stuff that the GFX delivers on. That's part of what I applaud Fujifilm for just making sure was in the camera. All right, just skipping around to another place, the Belgian Pigeon House. Again, just a quick example of where white balance, it did a really good job. The ambient light outside and the artificial lighting inside still handled well, parsed correctly, and any fixes I have to do, I think I can work out well. And by the way, guys, just a free tip for Brugge, and no one's paying me to say this, even up to Fujifilm Belgium, who lent me the camera. You know, if you're at the Belgian Pigeon House, drop by. The Cellar is a really nice restaurant. If I'd eaten there myself, I'd be real pleased to be able to take a photo of the room. And then also with the GFX, I'd be pleased that I'd be able to look at their recently discovered cellar that sits on the road underneath. You know, I set up the camera 15 seconds, but I didn't have to mess around with a bunch of exposures, smushing them together into HDR, highlights up, shadows down, and a little bit of brushing here and there. I get what I need. And as far as the film simulations go, in this case, I used Acros with the Y filter because, well, frankly, they had a bunch of fluorescent lighting there that looked a little bit funky. So wherever I'm taking this camera, you know, from basements to ceilings to just, you know, seeing a bench and handheld, firing off a shot at 12,800, I've at least got something to work with, even in these extreme situations. Obviously, this is an example of where this is extreme, but of course, with a little more lighting than those night shots, when I'm using high ISOs, it is less compromised too. So, really interesting. Fascinating little camera. Oh yeah, that's because I don't know about you, but every now and then on holiday I go for a haircut. What if I go into the place and they have that nice little detail? You know, we're talking about interiors. I've shown you some extremes. This is also off camera directly, so no edits whatsoever. But with reasonable lighting, turning up the ISO to 4000 so I can handhold at 1/25th, no worries. I get these nice clean shots, and at 4000, that grain is looking real nice and manageable. Let's go in there. What's going on? There we go. Let's get in there even closer. I mean, for a dotted pattern, for all these things, you can see there's still a lot of sharpness, a lot of clarity, and all that stuff can also even be massaged afterwards. So extremely pleased on these sort of situations too, including when I see some really nice scissors lined up and figure, let's grab a shot. Again, off camera, I'll be messing around with that afterwards, but yeah, nice clean images right off camera is a really good way to play. And another way to play on holiday, gang, is going into shops, you know, doing a little shopping, blowing some of those hard-earned savings. And in this case, I'm in Hermanus. It's just one of the nice little funky shops on Langstraat. It's a motorcycle apparel shop, so you can see some of the outfits and some of the gear you can pick up, including Triumph bikes, apparently. And when I'm in a shop, I might go from a nice little detail to a nice wide open shot of one of the other bikes. And with the GFX and that kit lens, it all works out. ISO 2000, handheld, 40th of a second is pretty manageable. I get my sharpness. I get a lot to work with. That's a bit zoomed in heavy. There we go. You know, at this point, if I do want a little more sharpness and a little less noise, that's where I set up the tripod and take everything down to where I need to be. But you can see, especially where I nailed the focus points, like on the wheel, still very, very clear, crisp image to work with. So, nice work, Fujifilm. Oh, and by the way, if you are at Hermanus over on the Langstraat, and again, they're not paying me to say this, drop by for a coffee. The cafe is nice. They opened it up this year. Another place they let me wander in with the camera and just play around for a minute. And I included this shot, guys, to show you at 1/8 of a second, I, you know, had a little bit of shake. So obviously I zoom in on the shot, and that's where the shake is showing up, and a little bit loss of sharpness and so forth. But even with these shots that don't quite get nailed down, what I find interesting is, you know, you're working with a really nice big file full of detail. And as I think a lot of you know, Photoshop can correct a lot, including shake and movement. So with the GFX, I can go in with these slightly missed shots and be able to clean them up a little bit, take care of that, and still have a good image to work with. So real nice to think about. And why don't we just head back to Handycam, but first I thought I'd shake it up at the end and throw that dog in from Hermanus. He's a real cutie. He's a good boy. Yeah. All right. It'll get silly if I keep going. Back to Handycam. So, that's the pixels and the peeping. Maybe that was helpful. I hope so. Eventually I will, of course, upload some RAWs out there into the wild so we can all take a look at a few of these files in detail, gang. But until then, I trust this video gives you a good idea of where the GFX can deliver in these low light situations. And in fact, just moving into conclusions, why don't I give you just a bit of a summary of what I felt on the GFX. Let's start on the image quality side of things. I mean, this is what matters most. It's also what we've just been looking at for the last little while. Just to sum up there, I found the dynamic range worked out really well. Low light photography, I'm going to be pushing down highlights, pulling up shadows, so it was very nice to see that I got some very, very good results there. Didn't lose too much sharpness, detail, noise didn't become a problem at these extremes. And I just thought the GFX did a really, really good job as far as dynamic range overall. Next to that, I'd say the color accuracy was rather pleasant, if not exceptional. You know, whether it was the white balance on camera, reading the scene, especially with like 3-4 light sources in some cases, and doing a very good job just nailing it off camera, as well as the actual quality of the colors themselves. They felt accurate, they felt rich, they felt well parsed, if you will, and just from landing on sensor to what I saw on my screen, hopefully in print down the road, I found a very, very nice accuracy to work with. So really, really pleasant there as far as image quality goes. Next to that, I found a couple of mixed results when we talk about ISO. I mean, it's sort of like pretty much every digital camera, and it was the same on film in the day. Do keep your ISOs as low as possible if you want to keep your noise down. I found certainly when I was in the 100 to 500, even 1,000 ISO range, that the GFX delivered rather pleasant results. I mean, if I was on the tripod and could keep it low, that much better. But it was good to see that if I pushed it around a little bit, up until 1,000, I didn't see any real grain that concerned me. Even when I went beyond 1,000, just dwelling on ISOs for a second, you know, you get up to 2,000, 4,000, you do start seeing a little more noticeable grain, but at the same time, it is still very like workable, pleasant grain. It's not destroying the image as far as, you know, overall fidelity. And I also noticed the type of grain that it was popping up at those mid-range ISOs. They were still very pleasant, you know, just well textured. I felt like if I'd been digging in towards getting rid of those afterwards, it would have worked out well, whether in Lightroom, Photoshop, or some of the specialized after editors. So good work there. Image quality holding up on the ISO, and obviously at those extremes, you watch out a little bit. Colors, dynamic range, I just ran through those. Those look great. I mean, as far as image quality goes, then you're usually looking at your sharpness and detail, which I think we can just say is a no-brainer. It's pretty good, especially keep those ISOs and really, you know, work the camera right. You'll get everything you need and maybe even a little bit more. Actually, quite a lot bit more when you work it right. And yeah, just overall for what the images produced offered me and what I could do with them as far as manipulation afterwards, or even in some cases directly off camera, especially those last photos of the shops. I was extremely pleased with what the GFX did. You know, I think it sort of speaks for itself at that point. And then just on the other side of the coin, as far as my conclusions and feedback for using the GFX in low light photography situations, you basically just step back from the image quality and look at the camera itself and having to use it in the real world. You know, I mean, low light situations aren't always the easiest. I did like how the buttons felt very distinct and clear. You know, they were all in sensible places. The dials were just, they weren't tucked in too much, so I could just, you know, feel with my thumb where I needed to be. And like I said, with the buttons, same story. It was also nice. I mean, I'm already in the Fujifilm system, so either the buttons or the software, as in, you know, how everything works through navigation on menus and such. I found that worked really well as an existing Fujifilm user. But at the same time, I also noticed whether it was hardware, software, menus, playing around with stuff, even non-Fujifilm users, once they were pointed towards the basics, they were on their way and didn't seem too bothered. So if you're in a low light situation, especially if it's like blue hour in October, the light is going fast, so you don't want to be messing around trying to find a button or an option. It was really good to see that the GFX delivered there. And then next to that, I guess also to just, you know, make it clear that it's not a perfect camera. It's a very, very good start from Fujifilm, but I did have a couple issues in the low light situation with the GFX. This was mostly on the hardware side of things. I mean, the autofocus was not super exceptional. You know, any camera, as you get to lower light, the autofocus suffers. And certainly when you get to bigger sensors like the medium format size, autofocus does take more of a hit than you would on the smaller cameras, mirrorless or otherwise. But having said that, gang, I found the GFX did a respectable job if I was in a static situation like some of these landscapes or the interiors, what have you. You know, as long as I pointed it towards a region where there was some sort of line, something that it could figure out some kind of, you know, detection of contrast towards making an autofocus point, it did okay. I did find myself leaning more towards manual focus, which is something I find the GFX does rather well. You know, it's not anything new for mirrorless cameras, but focus peaking, where you get to see those little pixels light up when you are in focus and focusing, you know, just by turning the ring. I found the GFX did really well, and it was a very, like, workable workaround towards the autofocus issues when they did pop up. I did also find that the electronic viewfinder was capable, but, you know, in these low light situations especially, there was a little bit of weirdness. You know, the color accuracy, the base sharpness of the image, I could still make everything out quite accurately, but I did notice the shadows could be a little more correct to, for example, what the back screen produced. And there were a couple of weird elements, like a bit of chromatic aberration and such, that I would like to not see, frankly, through the electronic viewfinder if possible. Now, it is good to remember, of course, Fujifilm is rather, you know, on it as far as firmware updates, even hardware updates. There are some possibilities there. They're a very proactive company, listening to what their customers want by the sounds of it. And, you know, the X series cameras showed how the evolution and progress mindset is not alien to Fujifilm. They do steady jumps forward from what I've been seeing. And with the GFX, I have a lot of faith. If there's some software issues that can be corrected as far as the electronic viewfinder, as far as the autofocus, I have faith Fujifilm will pull them out. And also, the electronic viewfinder comes right off. So if there is a hardware update needed for us low-light photographers to have that kind of accuracy, with enough demand, I wouldn't be surprised to see Fujifilm put that out. So very, very nice. And I will remind you guys that Fujifilm Belgium did lend me the camera for the week, but they obliged nothing of what I have to say and how I have to say it. So I genuinely like this camera. I genuinely feel that faith is good on Fujifilm as far as fixing things or maybe updating things if there's that interest. And yeah, aside from a thanks on Fujifilm Belgium side of things, I guess that's all I have to say about that. I actually do like it. And I think overall that's pretty much what I have to say here for the Fujifilm GFX 50s as far as low light photography. I will be doing another video or two on the GFX and might even be inspired to keep this video thing up. So if you want to show me that might be a good idea, you might want to like, you might want to subscribe, you might want to share, you might want to leave a comment, all that sort of good stuff. Do also check out my other videos if you found this interesting and maybe of worth. My name is Andy McSweeney of Andy McSweeney Photography and Photo Tour Brugge. Do feel free to keep up on either of those channels, or if you're in Bruges in person and want to join me as Photo Tour Brugge. I do get less stuttery and nervous than I do making these videos, but yeah, there's that. Anyways, I'm out of here. Get out there, get shooting. It's the thing to do. See ya.